I wanted to take a few minutes to walk you through the Activity 1 formatting in Word. The purpose of Activity 1 was to get you more familiar with the power of Word, including working with margins, working with columns, working with special characters, working with lists, and more. And again, you can work with these elements in all sorts of other apps. The goal is only partially to get familiar with Word. The bigger goal that ports into other documents and apps is to get familiar with the typographic, page layout, and formatting design elements and formatting options that you can do in most applications. For this video and the work I'll do, I have the final formatted doc open in Adobe Acrobat so I can eyeball it. I have the unformatted plain text doc open in Word. And I have the image file saved. And I have the listed changes from the week 2 overview video paused so I can go back and forth between and make sure I'm doing all of the changes I need to do. I'm going to toggle into Word and get started. I'm on a PC running Windows 10 and in Microsoft Word 365. So what I'm doing might look a little bit different on your machine depending on if you have a Mac or a PC or what version of Word you're running, but the features and the functions should be completely accessible to you in any version of Word. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is turn off the auto spell and grammar checking because otherwise all the red squigglies and blue lines will drive me nuts. So I'm going to go to File, select Options, and in my proofing window, I can turn off check spelling, mark grammar, click on OK. They all go away. So I pasted the text into a new Word doc and it's at the default margin. So the first thing I'm going to change is the margins. I'm going to guess the margins in the formatted doc are maybe 1 inch top and bottom and probably 1/2 inch left and right. So I'm going to go to Layout, Margins, Custom Margins. I'll leave the top at 1 inch. I'm going to change the left to 1/2 inch, bottom at 1, right at 0.5 or 1/2 inch. Yeah, that looks about right. The next thing I want to do is set the columns. If I just go in the Layout tab to Columns and select 2, my entire document is going to convert to columns, and I don't want the title of the piece or the author byline to be inside the column. So what I want to do is select just the text I want formatted in columns. I've got that selected now. Now I go to Columns. And I could select 2, or I can go down to more columns to get more options about what I want to do with my columns. So I'm going to set it at 2. The width of each should be the same, 3.5 inches, with a 0.5 or 1/2 inch space between. The column interval of a 1/2 inch sounds about right. I'll click on OK. And there we go. You'll see it set the columns for my body text, but not my title or byline. Next, I'm going to change the font face because setting the font face will make it easier to handle kerning and leading. I can select all the text on a PC by holding down Control and A, or I can go to Home, Editing, Select All, slightly more clunky. So I'm going to go back out, Control A. I'm a pretty good font sleuth, and I'm guessing this is Tahoma. Yep. That looks about right. Now that the whole text is set to Tahoma, I'm going to select just the title. And I'm going to eyeball 30. No, it's a lot bigger than that. 60? Oh, that looks about right. But it's also boldface. Okay, got that. Oh, that makes it a lot bigger. The bold facing, so I'm going to set it down to 52. That looks about right. But it looks like I'm missing some spacing or kerning in between the letters and the title. Now I could go through and manually hit the space bar, but that's a noob move. I don't think I want to do that. Computers are pretty smart. Most computers auto kern the fonts for us. They set the spacing between letters automatically and we don't have to mess with them much, but we can mess with them. So I'm going to select the title. I'm going to go to Font and to this More Options arrow. In the Advanced dialog box, I'm going to set the spacing and expand it by, let's do 2 points and see what that looks like. You can see before, after. I think it's a bit more spaced out than just 2 points. I'm going to go back to that font formatting menu. I'm going to try 3. that looks closer to what it is. And I'm also just noticing now that the body text is slightly more indented. For that, I'm not going to mess with the body text. Instead, I'm going to highlight the title line. I'm going to go to my ruler bar, pull it over. That looks about right now. So far we've opened the document, we've set a portion of the document to columns, we've adjusted the font face, we've adjusted the font size and the weight of the font for the title. We've also adjusted the kerning or letter spacing for the title. Next, I'm going to work on the body text because this looks too big. That's the first change I want to make. So I'm going to select the body text. Tahoma 11 is kind of large. Let's try Tahoma 10. That looks better. Next, we're going to work on the leading or the line spacing. Single space text is kind of tough on the eyes because there's so little room between lines. And it's especially tough on the eyes on full-size pages. So I am going to highlight all the text again. This time I'm going to select the paragraph formatting box and pull up the indents and spacing dialog box. Now I can control here the spacing before and after paragraphs. I can also control the line spacing. Right now it's set to single and the font face is 10 point. So I can select exactly and make that, let's try 18 point. Okay, that's way too big. That's almost double spaced if we go before, after, before, after. I'm going to go back to that paragraph dialog box. I'm going to go back to exactly, I'm going to set it at 13. That's a little bit better, but I'd still like a little bit more spacing. I'm going to bump that up to 15. That looks pretty good to me. I could even get more precise and go to 14.5. Yeah, I like that better. All right, so now that we've adjusted the line spacing or the leading, what I'm going to do is format the bulleted list. So these three items make up a bulleted list in the formatted document. So if you have Word auto convert on, you should be able to enter an asterisk and Word is going to auto format it into a bulleted list. You can adjust that formatting preference by going back to File and Options like we did to turn off the grammar and the spell checker. And now what I can do is go to the next item, go back, hit enter. And I've set default bullets here. The other way to do this is to select the items and select a bulleted list from the bulleted list icon. And we also have a ton of flexibility here as to what our bullets look like. So this is a bulleted list and the unordered list because the order isn't important. If the order of this list was important, for instance, think about a recipe, step 1, step 2, step 3, we toggle over to an ordered list. But again, this is just an unordered bulleted list. If I click on that little arrow here, I can see there's other options in my bullet library. I can create little checks. I can do empty circles. I can also define a new bullet by a symbol, a picture, a font. So let's say I wanted to grab a picture off my computer and I've decided that I want to make a bulleted list with Chuck's face. There we go. If I blow this like all the way up, you can see those little tiny bullets or a cat face. But just because Word lets you do something doesn't mean it's a good idea to do it. So I'm going to actually toggle that back over to the default bullet. If I wanted to space out my bullets, the best way to do that would be with the ruler bar. Now we could like hit the space bar or do some manual, never a good idea, people. The ruler bar is always your friend. If I, with nothing selected, pull, I'm just adjusting that one line, but if I want it to affect the entire list, let's say I want less space here, I could push these all the way over to the margin, but I don't think that looks really good because a list is supposed to visually stand out. I could put it all the way over here, but that looks odd. I could put it right back about there, and that's where I want it to be. 2 more changes, and you get a huge gold star if you caught these. The first is special characters in the document, and there's 2 of them. The first is the accent mark over the author's last name. You can create a hotkey if you use certain accent marks or symbols all the time, and I think Macs have keyboard shortcuts for accent marks. But we're actually going to go to the Insert tab, down to Symbols, select Symbol, select More Symbols, and we can see here we have all of our basic and Latin characters. So what I'm looking for is the capital E. There's the accent. I click on Insert. I click on Close. There's my accent mark. The second symbol, you may or may not have noticed, is this. Hyphens are not used in date spans. Rather, N dashes are. So I go back to Symbols and More Symbols. Special characters, my second option here is an N dash. I can insert it. So that's a hyphen. That's an N dash. 0.01% of your readers will actually care about this, but I am one of that 0.01%. All right, last thing, inserting the picture. I'm going to go to Insert, select Pictures, this device. There's my rhetorician image. Word is going to awkwardly plunk it right in the middle of the document. I can drag it and pull it around, but honestly, image formatting is one of the most powerful things to learn in Word. If I click off, it deselects the image. Watch what happens to my menu bar up here when I click once on the image. I get a picture formatting menu. What I'm going to want to do is wrap the text. Now I could put the image behind, but that makes the text a little bit difficult to read. I could align the image around the text, and it's going to bump it up to the top, and I can drag it here. That's a little bit better. So you can play around with wrapping options. I'm probably actually, honestly, going to go back for wrapping to behind text and put it there. And I can, in this regard, make it bigger. I could have it, oh, that's kind of cool. Actually have it span both columns. And it slightly is under the text here, but I think the text is still readable. Because I've set it to behind the text, I can actually create a page bleed. I can run the image right up to the edge of the page. So I think I'm going to put him down there and make him a little bit bigger. And I actually kind of like that better than the original formatted piece. So those are some of the basics of working with Word to do page formatting, and that's your Activity 1 review.